My next guest is one of the giants in the world of finance, Blackstone co-founder and CEO Stephen Schwarzman. Co-founding the Blackstone Group in 1985, Stephen has helped turn the firm into the leading alternative investment firm in the world today. With $450 billion of assets under management, the Blackstone Group is a business leader across asset classes, including private equity, hedge fund solutions, and the largest property owner in the world, real estate. In addition to running Blackstone, Steve is also a leader in philanthropy with a long history of giving back and supporting education, schools, healthcare, and the list goes on. It is my honor to have Steve Schwarzman as our guest for Wall Street this weekend. Steve, it's good to see you.
Good to see you, Maria.
Thank you so much for joining us. I want to start in China because you've done so much in China, from your Schwarzman scholars to investing and knowing the Chinese leadership. This weekend, we have the president's key economic team going to China to meet with their counterparts. Stephen Mnuchin is going, obviously, with Larry Kudlow and Mr. Lighthizer. What can they accomplish?
Well, I think they're starting a process. And I think it's important to keep the expectations under realistic control. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be adjusted between the two countries. China has very high tariffs, basically makes it difficult for foreigners, including the United States, to export into China. They have restricted ability to invest in a lot of industries in China. They have difficult regulations and standards and customs. They have sort of difficulties for us with protecting intellectual property. And so all of these are big issues, and they're unbalanced, and they tend to be in favor strongly of China. And the U.S. government just wants to level the playing field so that companies can compete fairly. What's normal for a developing country is to have a number of these issues in place to allow them to grow behind tariff walls and other things. China's reached the point where they're much more mature. They're about 14% of the world's economy, and they're growing double the rate of the U.S. at least. And so it's time to make these adjustments.
So do you think we will see a change? I mean, right now, what is there? There are 10 industries in China that are deemed off limits to foreigners, right? And even if you were to get a foothold in China, you could probably own 49% of a joint venture. Do you want to see the same kind of controls here? Is that something that Donald Trump would do in terms of foreign ownership? Or do you think they will ease those restrictions in terms of getting a foothold in China and selling to the 1.3 billion person population?
Well, I think China will change over time. And given where we are with the announcements on tariffs and other problems that will be created between the two countries, I think there's a good faith effort on both sides to try and avoid those types of, you would call it a trade war, I might call it a trade skirmish. That doesn't help anybody. What helps both countries is to reset the economic relationship to allow freer competition. I think the Chinese are open to that. Nothing just happens in a day. This will take some hard work between the two countries.
So talk to me about what has taken place in North Korea this weekend. They are talking about an end to the Korean War, North and South. Do you believe it?
Well, I think it's in the interests of North Korea to protect its country and protect its government. And on the path they were on, by threatening nuclear war against the United States, having the United States react to that, which anybody would, organizing a sanctions regime, which was very tough, and getting the support, the wider support of the world. And the Chinese have done a terrific job in terms of limiting goods and services that can go to Korea. That's their major way in for Korea to live, whether it's with oil or other things. And as the Chinese tighten this noose along with the Americans, it's very difficult to imagine what you would do on the Korean side, North Korean side, particularly with potential for military action from the United States. So if you were sitting in the Kim Jong-il position with all of those negative things happening, you'd want to find some way out of this. And I happened to be in China in the same compound when he was showing up on his train. And I said to the person next to me, I said, this is somebody who's never been to Beijing in 6 years, just never been.
Right.
And, you know, there's not a wonderful relationship, particularly with the Chinese and the North Koreans, unlike what most people think. And the fact that he showed up, I thought, is because he wanted to make some kind of deal because the pressures are just terrible.
Steve, you're Schwarzman scholars. We are talking about a fourth graduating class right now. This is 4 years.
Now, fourth we're admitting.
Fourth you're admitting.
Second is graduating.
So why was this so important to you, Steve, to raise money for students from all around the world to go to China and to be part of this program?
Because I looked at China probably about 7 years ago, and you could see it growing so rapidly, and you could see in the teeth of the financial crisis the difficulty that the developed world was having. And I looked at it and I said, wow, if the Western democracies are having economic problems and we're in a repressive regulatory environment and we're not extending credit, we're going to have high unemployment. We're going to have people with, less jobs, less opportunity. They're going to have to use their savings to survive, and they're going to be angry. And once people get angry, it's called populism. They get angry at somebody local, or somebody in another party, or somebody somewhere domestically, and it doesn't solve their problem. So they continue to have the same problem, which leads to more anger. And I figured eventually they're going to get to China, and because they're the winner of the game. They're growing at that point 7 to 8%. They're hiring 10 million people a year. Their wealth is going up rapidly, and people will find somebody who's doing well and try and take them down. So I was pretty sure they were going to get to China. I didn't know they'd get there this quickly. But what I wanted to do is get in the way of that hostility directed against what is the greatest power in the world other than the United States.